invest in ourselves. We all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and it's time to get wealthy. You're going to learn exactly what you need to know and do to finally achieve the level of financial success you desire and you deserve. Gas prices, food, everything is at an all-time high, and that's because inflation is making prices go up. And in addition to that, a recent study by JP Morgan shared that many people in the second half, they expect more of their debt to increase. So what can you do to actually cut your expenses so that you don't have to take on more debt? Well, I'm excited because joining us today is someone who paid off over $100,000 in debt. And she's going to share exactly what you need to do to take ownership of your financial success during these trying times. But before we get started, here are the 3 things that they don't want you to know about debt. First is, debt really is like having a hole in your wallet. The second thing is, they've made it even easier with these buy now, pay later apps at the point of purchase. And then thirdly, and lastly, mastering your money is the way that you achieve true financial freedom. And that's exactly what our guest today has done herself. Lynnette Cox is a personal finance expert and author of more than 15 publications. She also has had a New York Times bestseller, Zero Debt, The Ultimate Guide to Financial Freedom. And that's why I'm excited to have my fellow financial freedom fighter and money coach, Lynnette Cox. Welcome to Get Wealthy.
Thank you so much for having me. You know, I was looking forward to this conversation.
Well, what I love about you, Lynnette, is that you have been so transparent about your own journey. And so I'd love if you could just begin by just sharing with our audience just a little bit about this more than 2 decades of your expertise in personal finance and expert, CNBC, Wall Street Journal. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Well, from a professional standpoint, yes, my background before I owned my financial education, literacy, and consulting company was as a financial journalist. So I did work for Dow Jones and Wall Street Journal for 10 years. I was a CNBC correspondent. I was actually a Wall Street Journal reporter for CNBC. I spent years in the media working for Associated Press, Fox, the 10 o'clock news in Philadelphia, and the Philadelphia Inquirer. So my background was actually as a journalist, but it was really when I kind of parlayed my journalism skills and started working for Dow Jones that I got to do what I call kind of like financial boot camp. Because when I was a reporter at Dow Jones, I was covering Wall Street. And so I would write about the brokerage business, write about the stock market and what was happening in the financial world. And I started interviewing thousands and thousands of financial experts, stockbrokers and traders, money managers, certified financial planners. And I was always asking them about what worked, what they told their clients to do, how they made their money, and honestly, even the stuff that their clients did wrong, mistakes that they had made. And so over the years, I started to say, okay, you know what? This is not rocket science. I can do this too, even though honestly, in my own life, on a personal level, in many ways, I was like a hot financial mess. I'm not going to even lie. But long story short, after a long career in journalism, I started my own company in 2003, a financial education company called themoneycoach.net. That's our LLC that I co-own and operate with my husband, Earl Cox. And you know what? Next in March of 2023, it's going to be 20 years. I cannot believe it, but it's been a great ride. Entrepreneurship is a passion of mine. I've never looked back. And I really just love what I do as an entrepreneur because honestly, Deborah, in a lot of ways, I get to do the same things that I did when I was a financial journalist. I still write a lot. I'm on TV all the time, radio, podcasts, print interviews, etc. I just teach people now about money management principles in different ways and through different platforms like speaking engagements, etc. So it's really kind of like a full circle thing for me where I've parlayed the writing and communication skills that I had and that I had married with the financial knowledge that I gained over the years to now do what I do to help folks who want to become better with their money, whether it's the corporate clients that hire me, banks, insurance companies, fintech firms, and so forth, a lot in the financial services space, honestly, because they often, of course, have a vested interest in wanting their employees or their clients or even their prospects sometime to be better with managing money. So the corporate clients that I have, as well as the nonprofit clients, they will bring in folks who need to learn some aspect of personal finances. And I'm happy to teach them just that.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, what I love is that you really demonstrate, right, or illustrate how you can know exactly what to do as it relates to the financial markets and investing and still not do it. As you said, your finances were a hot mess. So what I want to talk about, on Get Wealthy, we have a framework for financial success, mindset, strategy, and execution. And so that's exactly where I want to start with you first, just about mindset. How did you have to shift? Here you are interviewing all of these experts, advisors, and yet in doing so, you probably felt like, wow, I'm interviewing these people, but I don't have my own financial act together. What did you have to do to shift your mindset in order to achieve the level of financial success and get rid of the debt that you were carrying and clean up that hot mess of finances?
Well, Deborah, because I've not only been on a wealth journey, but over the past year, a health journey as well, I've had so many incredible epiphanies about the ways in which mindset contributes to your activities, values, behaviors, and how you execute on various strategies that might be beneficial or sometimes even harmful for you. And so I'm drawing the analogy here between wealth and health because, frankly, when I first wrote Zero Debt, The Ultimate Guide to Financial Freedom, the book took off. It became a New York Times bestseller. It did really well. It continues to this day to do very well. We've done the 3rd edition of Zero Debt, and we're thinking about doing a 4th edition because, unfortunately, the debt problem in America has only gotten worse over time. But honestly, and this is no lie, when I paid off my $100,000 in credit card debt, I was just doing strategies kind of piecemeal. I was doing what I thought would work. And then it was like, oh, great, it did. It was effective. And then I was like, I should document this. I should explain how I got out of debt and what I did. And so I wrote Zero Debt as kind of a 30-day action plan to help people to jumpstart their efforts to get out of debt. But what I've learned since then, girl, is that if you don't have the zero debt mindset, you're going to go right on back into debt, okay? So it's easy, quote unquote, it's easier, certainly, to get out of debt. It's way, way, way harder to stay out of debt. And that's where the mindset comes in. So again, as an analogy, I moved from the East Coast, from Northern New Jersey in 2019. I said, I want a change of lifestyle. I want a better quality of life. I want a cheaper cost of living. I wanted to have an outdoors type of life so I could be more active and get healthier. I moved to a community that gave me all of just that. Well, in 2019, I immediately hit it hard. I joined a gym. I joined Lifetime. I did this. I got a trainer. I did this thing called the 60-day challenge that Lifetime offers. Long story short, again, I ended up winning this whole national competition, beating out like 20,000 people all around the country for my weight loss and my efforts over this 60-day period. And it was like, woohoo, great. I did well. But guess what, Deborah? In 2020, and then in 2021, I put the weight right back on and then some. And so what I learned is that I really didn't have the right mindset to have sustained healthy behaviors, to have sustained weight loss, to help me to do well and to have this healthy body that I now have. So in 2021, in the fall of 2021, my husband and I both got really super serious about our health. And we said, listen, it ain't gonna be no trainers involved. It's not gonna be no gym involved. It's not gonna be no fad diet involved. We're gonna do some research. We're gonna do what works for us. We're going to execute on healthy lifestyle behaviors day in and day out consistency. There's no artificial deadline. It's not like I'm like, oh, I got to go to a wedding or I got to, look good for a special occasion. No, I want to do what's going to be sustainable over the rest of my life. And so kind of changing my mindset to get around thinking I need a quick fix. Like I need to just drop this weight in X amount of time. It's yielded phenomenal results. So over the last 10 months now, I've dropped 80 pounds.
Wow, I love it. But you know what, Lynnette, I'm so glad that and that's what, because I really believe that first, health is wealth, right? Absolutely. And I also believe that so much of what we want to acquire, change is an inside job, whether it's wealth, and you talked about the fact you can pay off all those debts, but if your attitudes, if your beliefs, and if your behaviors have not changed, then you're going to revert back to what you always did because it's habits, right? Like if you have a habit of spending and you're going to accrue debt. If you got a habit of eating and not exercising, then the weight's going to come in. And so I love that we started there, because at the end of the day, one of the things I talk about in A Purse of Your Own is you got to have a wealthy lifestyle, right? And make sure that your environment, right, supports what your outcomes are. And also that, so often we'll make these, to your point, great accomplishments over the short term. And I remember when you won that challenge, you were so excited. And so that's where I want to go next. When we come back, really is, I want to get into strategies, right? Because you talked about the strategy that you used to pay off $100,000 in debt. Woo, 80 pounds, girl, in 10 months. I don't even know what to say. So when we come back, we're going to talk strategy. So don't go anywhere, folks. We're talking with Lynnette Kelfani-Cox. She's the money coach, and she's going to tell us exactly what we need to do to get and stay healthy and wealthy. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Let's be honest, as successful women, we're crushing it. Maxed out 401k and Roth IRA? Check. Aggressive savings and investments? Check. Yet, the freedom our success was supposed to buy can leave us stuck on the six-figure hamster wheel, watching retirement slip further down the road. There's another way. Get coaching courses and community at wealthyu.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind $100,000, so we want to hit that. Y'all money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is Roland at RolandSMartin.com.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach, and I'm so excited to be having a conversation with you today about debt and the things that you can do to really, in spite of these volatile times that we're in, inflation going up, prices going up, what you can do to not fall victim to putting yourself in financial disarray. So joining me today is the amazing Lynnette Kelfani-Cox. Our money coach is here to give us all we need to know about how, in spite of prices going up. And so that's where I want to start with you in terms of strategy. Lynnette, here's what we see. We see that prices on just about everything has gone up in terms of whether it's food, whether it's gas, we're spending more money. And if you add to that, we've got a number of different things to take our money away now. Before you pulled out your credit card, but now you're online and you get these little apps that say, oh, you can pay over 4 payments or whatever. Let's talk about strategy. First, let's begin with the strategy that you use to get out of debt, because I think that's where a lot of people are.
So this is a great segue and a transition, because we talked about part of the mindset should not be on quick fixes or on anything that is not sustainable. And that translates into strategy. So again, if you want to think about a strategy for long-term financial success and to help you to maintain positive credit and debt management behaviors, you really want to be thinking about a whole host of things that you can do over the long haul. So first off, let's go ahead on and start with that old dreaded B word, okay? I know a lot of people don't want to hear that B word, okay? The budget, okay? Okay, just think about it as a spending plan of action, okay? It's not a 4-letter word, okay? Really, first, in terms of making sure that you're managing your debts wisely and eliminating debt, you have to understand what's going on with your budget. And again, when I say a spending plan of action, I look at a budget as an empowering tool because it gives you so many benefits. It helps you to manage your cash flow. It helps you to have clarity about your finances and to know exactly where your money is going. It helps you to assess whether or not you are deficit spending, and you don't want to be doing that because you want to be making sure that your expenses are less than your take-home pay. And then it helps you also to reach your financial goals. So having a budget, having a spending plan of action, it's a wonderful tool. It's a kind of one of those quivers in your arsenal that you're going to be able to use to help you to not only manage debt, but to keep your finances in proper alignment.
Well, I want to stop right there with you, though, Lynnette, because I feel like, what people feel if they don't have a budget, like they have freedom, in your mind, you're telling yourself, well, I'm making money, right? Like I'm working so hard, I'm making money. And you feel like that is your reward, right, for working hard, and that a budget can seem like a constraint as opposed to the guardrails that you just described. And so
let me go ahead.
Address that.
This is very common. And honestly, I think people are right. I think that the average person who's like, girl, I work hard for a living, okay? Because, they feel, you know what? I deserve it. And you know what? You absolutely do. But you also deserve to live a life that is free from anxiety and stress about the debts that you might have accrued. So part of what I tell people is when I'm telling them about making a budget, I have a different approach than most folks who are telling you to budget. For me, a budget is not a financial straitjacket at all. You use the word guardrails. It is more like guidelines for you. And certainly there are limitations, but really, I just have like the first 2 rules of budgeting. If you just kind of like follow these 2 rules, there's more to it than we can cover in this one, session today. But the first rule of budgeting is very basic, but 70% of people don't follow this rule. You can't spend more than you earn. You have to look at your actual take-home pay. You have to look at your actual expenditures, what's going out the door. And if your outflow is exceeding your inflow, you got a problem, okay? You have to make adjustments, because if you are deficit spending and spending more than you earn, that means you're leaning on the credit card somewhere. You're leaning on loans or other forms to be able to help you to get by. And I don't care how much money you make. If it's $30,000, $300,000, or $3 million, you'll always be broken in debt if you're spending more than you earn. That's why you see a lot of celebrities who have that bling bling lifestyle. They might have a $10 million contract. They might have had, endorsement deals up the wazoo. And then where do you find them? In bankruptcy court or having problems with the tax man. It's because in part, there's a whole host of issues going on, but sometimes it's also about their excessive spending. So rule number 1, you got to check. You got to look at things and say, am I spending less than I'm actually earning? And if that's a no, then you have to start to adjust some aspects of your budget. Then the second rule, my second rule of budgeting, this is probably going to come as a surprise to a lot of people. I say that your budget absolutely must include 2 things. One is it must include a savings category. I can't tell you how many times I've looked at people's budgets and they'll tell me, oh, you know what, here, I got to pay my mortgage, my utilities, my car note, my credit card bills, my student loans. They have all this stuff, but they have nothing set aside for the future. Nothing for emergencies, nothing for a rainy day, nothing for retirement. I'm like, well, come on now, sis, we got to put some savings into the budget, because that's ensuring your financial security. And guess what? If you don't sock away even a little bit of money every single month for an emergency, when something goes wrong, your tire gets a flat or whatever, what are you going to do? You're going to have to whip out your credit card and use that plastic in order to deal with that emergency. Thus, you're going to drive yourself deeper into debt. So that part.
You know what? Yeah. So you named 2 things. And I think that's so critical, because I really feel like you cannot change what you will not acknowledge. And so that first step is really acknowledging what your cash flow situation is. Correct. Well, the other question I have for you, and because I know there's some experts, and I'll tell you how I feel about it after I ask you this question, who would say, oh, well, you got to pay off all your debts and you can't be putting money in your 401k until you pay off all your debt. Where do you weigh in on that?
Strongly disagree. Hard pass on that. Listen, if folks waited until they paid off all their debts in order to get started savings, they would be we're already facing a $7 trillion retirement crisis. The retirement crisis would be far greater, because listen, student loans, we got 1.7 trillion in student loans, 45 million folks owe college debt. On average, it takes people 20 years to pay off their student loans. And let's not talk about African Americans and women in particular. The typical Black female owes more on her student loans a dozen years after she graduates than she did when she first got out of school. Not to mention credit card debt, auto loans, and other obligations and liabilities. So I think it's totally doing people a disservice to say you must pay off your debts first, your consumer debt, before you start saving. I tell people you have to do both. They are not mutually exclusive. You might prioritize one. You might sock away a little bit more money towards one versus the other based on your own individual goals and desires, but you have to do both. Secondly, I was going to add, Deborah, to the second thing that you have to put into the budget. And this is where the sustainability factor comes in. In addition to having a savings category in your budget, I tell people they should absolutely put into the budget something that gives them joy, something that they want to spend money on, something that's a discretionary purchase for them, but that would make them feel happy and fulfilled. And people are like, wait, so I like clothes, or I like travel, or I like to work out at the gym, or I like photography. And I'm like, great, let's work that into the budget. And you know why I tell people to do this? Because it's human nature. Like you said, people are like, I work hard for a living, and I'm not trying to be out here doing all of this hustle and grind without having some element of reaping the benefits of my hard labor. And so we know human nature rebels. That's why there's a thing called frugal fatigue. After people get locked down and put on a budget for so long, like what happened during the pandemic, the first year or two, where we saw people did save like crazy because they couldn't go anywhere. They couldn't go to, restaurants or to travel, et cetera. But I tell people, let's factor that into the budget. As long as you're observing rule number one, you're not spending more than you earn. If you want to buy some clothes, let's figure out how much can you afford. Is it $200 a month? Is it $50 a month? What is the number? If you want to go to the gym, if you want to have technology or gadgets, travel, we will work that into the budget. But it also forces the person from a strategy perspective to prioritize.
Well, I do love that. I do love that, Lynnette, because you're saying that it's exactly the point that you're making, is that you have a spending plan, right? And spending is a part of that budget. And so I always look at it like an allowance, like an allowance, exactly what it say. I'm allowed, right, to spend this much.
Yes.
But I do think that going back to mindset, while we're still in strategy, I feel we need to hear a strategy for changing that mindset. So, girl, you paid off $100,000 in debt. You lost 80 pounds. What strategy did you use to change your mindset, your beliefs, your attitudes, and your behaviors?
So one of the biggest sort of epiphanies and strategies for me was that I was only going to do things that were healthy for me in the long run. So I would basically say, does it help or hurt? So now, like when I think about my choices for my spending, whether or not I'm going to use a credit card, the investments that I make, et cetera, obviously when you're investing, you're expecting a return, right? But when you're spending, you have to think about it. Like, is this helping or hurting my finances? And if the answer is hurting, then that's a deeper thing to unpack. Because that's about, why are you consciously or continuously doing things that are hurting yourself, are hurting your own?
You know what, Lynnette, I just had this epiphany, and that is, it's from a mindset perspective, it's really about your self-awareness, right? Like in Wealthy You, we call that a wealth mindset. And you describe it perfectly, because it's, don't let what you want right now stop you from achieving what you really want most. And really, if you think about it, anything of value takes time. So really having a wealth mindset really is about you asking, for every choice that you make, what is the long-term benefit of the action that I'm taking now? And if it doesn't make me better off or create value in some way, then it's not taking me in the direction that I want to go. Love that. Because that's where, go ahead, I'm sorry.
and Deborah, I was going to say, and can we take it one step further? Okay. When you said self-awareness, it absolutely is recognition of self-awareness, but can we take it to self-love? Because now you've gotten, okay, say you had this clarity, this come to Jesus moment, this aha awakening, and you're like, oh, okay, if these things that I'm doing are harmful to me, why would I keep doing that? If now you're aware of the behavior, if you really want to nurture yourself, nurture your finances, nurture your body, nurture relationships, nurture your garden, okay? You got to tend to it. You got to show it some love. You got to love on it. And I read something, I was going to post this as a quote, I don't know where, anonymous author. It said, consistency is the highest form of self-love. And I was like, oh, if that is not a word, because that's what you have to practice, consistent, proper behaviors in your financial dealings, in your health dealings, if you want to show your self-love and if you want to have a positive outcome. So yes, you go from self-awareness to self-love to saying, you know what? I do deserve to have a rich and abundant life. I do deserve to be healthy and energetic and strong and to feel good about myself. So what are the steps? How do I back into that? But I'm telling you, it's a lot to unpack because sometimes deep down, we don't feel we deserve it. We have, a lot of baggage and mixed messages and a lot of antiquated sometimes beliefs that we're holding on to. Like somebody will say, rich people, they're all scams. They had to do something to get over, or, they might say the expression filthy rich. So subconsciously, we might associate wealth or being rich or having an abundant life with somehow negativity, or that you were, bad to other people. We don't associate it with largesse or generosity or kindness or what we can do with the money to create a better world. And so it's a lot to unpack, but certainly
it is a lot to unpack. And Lynnette, what's so interesting is if our viewers watch some of our other segments, this thing comes up over and over again. And it really is about those limiting beliefs. And particularly in the Black community, this whole concept of that wealth is bad. You know what I mean? When you said filthy rich, it was just like, wow, that so describes how people feel. And so sometimes you're disconnected, right, from what you know to be true and what you believe, right? So if you believe you can or you believe you can't, you're right, because it is a belief. So when we come back, I want to talk to you about execution, because clearly the ability to achieve the outcomes that you have, paying off $100,000 in debt, but you were honest with you. You were like, yeah, but you know what? I had changed my mindset. But now you've taken off 80 pounds, right, in a very short period of time. And to your point, it needs to be sustainable. So when we come back, I want to talk about execution. So you've learned a lot from Lynnette Calfani around health, wealth, paying off debt. When we come back, I wanted her to share with us exactly how you can take these concepts that we're talking about today and execute on them. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Hatred on the streets, a horrific scene, a white nationalist rally that descended into deadly violence.
White people are losing their damn minds.
As an angry pro-Trump mob storms the U.S. Capitol, we've seen shootings.
We're about to see the rise of what I call white minority resistance. We have seen white folks in this country who simply cannot tolerate Black folks voting.
I think what we're seeing is the inevitable result of violent denial.
This is part of American history. Every time that people of color have made progress, whether real or symbolic, there has been what Carol Anderson at Emory University calls white rage as a backlash.
This is the rise of the Proud Boys and the Boogaloo Boys. America, there's going to be more of this.
Here's all the Proud Boys, guys.
This country is getting increasingly racist
in its behaviors and its attitudes because of the fear of white people.
The fear that they're taking our jobs, they're taking our resources, they're taking our women. This is white fear.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
I'm Deborah Owens, America's Wealth Coach. I hope you've been enjoying my conversation with Lynnette Kelfani-Cox, the money coach, on the things that you can do to really take financial control. So we talked about mindset, we've talked about strategy. Now we're going to talk about execution. So Lynnette, I want to talk about now how we actually take some of the concepts that you've conveyed to us and take action. And so let's go to the whole execution of paying off debt. Now, I've heard, a couple of different methodologies, the snowball method, the avalanche method. Talk to us a little bit about, if you're somebody who has significant debt, what approach would you use to paying it off?
So I want people to think about the debt payoff options that they have in a big picture way. First, to think about baby steps, about substitutions, and to think about options. So let's kind of dig into each one of these. So first, on the baby steps front, and again, frankly, this applies to debt as opposed to just like it applies to health and wellness. So sometimes people dig themselves deeper into a hole because they're thinking, oh, well, I already got $10,000 in debt. Let me just go on and charge this trip. What is another $1,000 difference difference is going to make? But you know what? Warren Buffett, the billionaire investor, he said, if you find yourself in a hole, step one is stop digging. Okay. So like if you're in a quicksand pit, you don't just keep going like this and just like digging yourself further into debt. You have to stop digging yourself into debt. So when it comes to baby steps and you're paying off the debt, sometimes people don't realize that little by little, chipping away is just as good. So every time you decrease your debt, you actually increase your net worth and your wealth. So too often, there's a disconnect. People think that wealth building is only, I'm able to save, I'm able to invest, I'm able to buy an asset like stocks, bonds, mutual funds, or real estate. Well, certainly asset accumulation is one way that you increase your net worth, because that's the first part of establishing your net worth, is to take a tally of all of your assets. But then you subtract your liabilities or your debt in order to ascertain your net worth. So anything you can do to decrease your debts, that's actually boosting your net worth. So if you're knocking out $50 a month, and that's what you're knocking off of those credit card bills, or paying an extra $100 a month towards your mortgage, or extra $100 towards those student loans, all of that from an execution standpoint, it might seem like a baby step, but you're actually boosting your net worth and you're putting yourself on the right trajectory.
That's good. That's good, because I think oftentimes we are always looking at on the asset side of the ledger, rather than reducing liabilities really does have the same impact. So that's why I want to go to this other question, because I do think that when we talk about strategies, people are always being presented with all of these quick fixes, right? Like, do this, take the 0% card and you can get rid of that debt. Then you've taken you no longer have it and you still have that credit line. But I wanted to get your opinion on How do you feel about people getting debt consolidation loans, meaning maybe they've got a lot of those high retail cards that are 26, 27%, and they can now get that reduced to 6 to 7% and have a time period through which they're paying it off, as opposed to, this revolving credit? What are your thoughts?
So, great question. And again, leading right into the other points I'm going to make about substitutions and about options, right? So substitutions, when you're in debt, a substitution is basically a form of swapping debt, right? You're kind of exchanging or swapping one form of debt for another. So it could be a debt consolidation loan. It could be something like a balance transfer where you have a high rate card. And right now, as you mentioned, with inflation on the rise, people are leaning on those credit cards more. The Fed has raised interest rates and says that they're going to do it again. The average credit card interest rate is about 17.5% right now and is expected to rise to 19% by the end of 2022. So one good strategy, yes, that I actually approve of and think is phenomenal. I personally have used it. I've had my coaching clients use it, et cetera, is to do things like substitute the debt that you have on one credit card, which might be 17% or so, and put it on a 0% card, which will have a so-called teaser rate for 12 to 18 months typically. You do pay a balance transfer fee. It's often around 3%. It could be anywhere as low as 2% to as much as 5%. But you're going to be saving on all those interest and finance charges over the next 12 to 18 months. So all of the payments you make now are going to be going towards your principal as opposed to going toward the interest, which helps you to more rapidly pay down that debt. On the debt consolidation loan front, when it comes to various forms of debt, because you could have a loan consolidation under your student loans. You could have a loan consolidation, of course, under the credit card debt that you also owe. I think it varies based on your goal and your outcome and the type of loan consolidation that you're being offered. Sometimes some of these loan consolidation deals are tied to your home or are tied to home equity. So they're basically saying, yeah, we'll consolidate your loan, but they're kind of attaching it to your house and saying, like, if you don't pay, in essence, your house is on the hook as well. So that's a consideration. Others simply let you consolidate if you do something like a debt management program, again, a type that I've recommended to people and that I think is good for a lot of consumers. If you go to like nonprofit credit counseling agencies, like NFCC, National Foundation for Credit Counseling, they have a whole team of folks that'll help people who need a debt management program. Again, the bottom line is that they've negotiated interest rates in advance with creditors that are either in the single digits or even 0%. So you're swapping that debt and you're combining all of them into one payment and you're making one payment in that fashion. Again, I think those are good options. Even some debt settlement options are good for consumers who are perhaps anticipating bankruptcy, for example. Instead of having a 10 years bankruptcy on your credit report, you might try a debt settlement approach, which again has its own pros and cons. But in the end, you're negotiating with the creditor that you owe to pay a specific or a reduced amount, say 30% on the, 30 cents on the dollar, 50 cents on a dollar. It has credit implications, but you certainly get to discharge of that debt in a more rapid way. So those substitutions are strategies that I absolutely recommend and think could be good for consumers.
Great point. I mean, and you covered literally every question that I was going to ask you. So we talked about zero transfers. We talked about debt consolidation. We talked about consumer credit counseling, right? And then debt settlements. But I want to go back to something that you said earlier. And it's really that if you have not really attacked the beliefs around those behaviors that have you overspending, then you could find yourself in the same place. And I do know that for some people, what will happen is when they clear those credit card balances, now they've got a zero balance on that line of credit, there could be a tendency to go right back
absolutely
into it, right? Because you feel like you've got a clean slate. So that's one of the things that I want you to address most of all with our audience is kind of what do you need to do to make sure that when you get out of debt, you stay out of debt?
Great question, Deborah. And in my book, Zero Debt, I tell people that a lot of folks go into debt for what I call the dreaded D's: downsizing, a death in the family of the main breadwinner, divorce, disability, or disease. If any one of those things happens to you, obviously your finances can be upended and you might have to whip out those credit cards. However, if you're thinking about doing something like taking out home equity and then using your home equity line of credit to pay off your credit card debt, I absolutely tell people to not do that as a strategy if they have not addressed the fundamental problem that got them into debt in the first place. So let's say that you got into debt because you lost your job and you couldn't pay your, credit card bills on time. And now you're like, okay, let me just use my home equity to pay off the credit card bills. Well, guess what? If you're still saying I'm unemployed, I still don't have a job yet, you're going to just keep running up those bills month after month, just like you just said. Or if you went through a divorce and you're still in the midst of the divorce and you thought it was going to be a quick and easy divorce, but now it's dragged on, 12 months, 18 months, 2 years, the paperwork hasn't been signed. You haven't been getting your, alimony or child support. There's just drama or issues going on. That issue has not been resolved. So you don't want to borrow or do a substitution and think that it's a short-term or a fast, expedient fix when really the underlying issue has not been addressed. Ditto for things like health, disability. But if you say, oh my God, I got into a car accident and I got behind on my bills because I couldn't work and I was laid up in the hospital, laid up at home. But now I'm able-bodied, I'm back to work, I have my full income, et cetera, and I just need to play catch up. If the situation has been resolved, then yes, I would say that it could be a prudent use of, say, home equity or another form to be able to wipe out those debts, get yourself caught up, and then pay off those debts and not go back into that problem again.
No, that's great. And I think what you're saying is that it's kind of like situational, right?
Yeah, very much.
Oh, Lynnette, I know we covered a lot of ground today, but I do know that, and as you well know, because I've seen you being interviewed recently on just what people can do in these sort of inflationary times. And I would love for you to share with the audience. You mentioned zero debt, and how do they find out about the tools and resources that you have available to them to get their financial house in order?
Well, I appreciate that. You let me do a plug here. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
So first, I always point people to free stuff. That's my advice to folks, to try to get free anytime you can. I tell them about freebies and OPM, other people's money. So I would encourage anybody who wants more information to first check out my free financial advice site. It's askthemoneycoach.com. So we have 26 categories of personal finance on there, over 1,600 articles, a ton of videos, and just content from me, probably answering pretty much any question you could have thought about on the personal finance front. Separately, I have a video-based platform called moneycoachuniversity.com, where people can go and they can get my coaching delivered through video format. It's at scale. It's you do it asynchronously on your own time, in other words. And some of the courses on there are free, actually. Most of them are actually paid. So that's another way that people can connect and engage with me. Of course, I offer a one-on-one coaching to a select group, a few number of clients as well. But then I'm on social media too, just giving my advice. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, just all of that stuff. Podcast, media, traditional.
Yes. So we'll make sure that we put all of your social media handles on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. You probably TikToking it too, girl.
No, I haven't got to TikTok yet. Y'all not gonna find me dancing on those milk crates. No, not yet. No.
Not the music and the pointing. I love it. Well, Lynnette Calfani-Cox, the Money Coach, we're so grateful that you came on to share with our audience how they can get wealthy, but more importantly, stay wealthy. Thanks so much for coming on Get Wealthy today.
My pleasure.
Awesome. So when we come back, what are the 3 takeaways that you need to have gotten from this show? Don't go anywhere, folks. We'll be right back.
When we invest in ourselves, we're investing in what's next for all of us. Growing, creating, making moves that move us all forward. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jackie Hood Martin, and I have a question for you. Ever feel as if your life is teetering and the weight and pressure of the world is consistently on your shoulders? Well, let me tell you, living a balanced life isn't easy. Join me each Tuesday on Black Star Network for A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie. We'll laugh together, cry together, pull ourselves together, and cheer each other on. So join me for new shows each Tuesday on Black Star Network, A Balanced Life with Dr. Jackie.
When we invest in ourselves, our glow, our vision, our vibe, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
I hope you have enjoyed our Get Wealthy segment today. It's been all about you tackling your finances in spite of these volatile times. But here are the 3 takeaways from today's show. First, you should know that if you're using credit cards, or any type of credit, it probably is a red flag to affordability. Can you really afford that? But of course, we know there are situations. The second thing that you should know is that the magic of compounding works in reverse with credit. So if you have high interest rates and you pay the minimum, you could see that balance doubling. And then finally, that you should use debt for leverage, as Lynnette said, other people's money, not for things. So thanks so much for joining us on Get Wealthy, only on Black Star Network.
When we invest in ourselves, we all shine. Together, we are Black beyond measure.
When you talk about blackness and what happens in Black culture, we're about covering these things that matter to us, speaking to our issues and concerns.
This is a genuine people-powered movement.
There's a lot of stuff that we're not getting. You get it, and you spread the word.
We wish to plead our own cause. Too long have others spoken for us. We cannot tell our own story if we can't pay for it.
This is about covering us.
Invest in Black-owned media.
Your dollars matter. We don't have to keep asking them to cover our stuff. So please support us in what we do, folks.
We want to hit 2,000 people, $50 this month, raise $100,000. We're behind 100,000, so we want to hit that. Your money makes this possible.
Checks and money orders go to P.O. Box 57196, Washington, D.C. 20037-0196. The Cash App is $RM Unfiltered. PayPal is R Martin Unfiltered. Venmo is RM Unfiltered. Zelle is rolling@RolandSMartin.com.